for those who don't know me, my name's Keith Pond. I'm the director of EOCCS for EFMD Global. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. And I'm absolutely sure now that I've started, we'll get more people joining as they navigate their way through to the platform. Really, the germ of the idea for this has been around for a long time. We know, as educators, we know that engaged students learn. And ultimately, that's what we need to facilitate in our classes. Lots of people, nearly all of us, had experience during COVID of that remote emergency learning, or certainly remote emergency teaching. And as the lockdown periods went on, we were finding more and different ways to interact with and engage our students. What today is about is showing you just what can be done with the available technology, and to make sure that we can move forward understanding and learning from others. And the others that I have, and I'll introduce them very shortly, from the University of Nicosia and from Engagely, introduce those people. But first, we have a question for you to test one of the functions. Put your city name in that box and click the V. Wow, we have now, Tel Aviv seems to be written rather large there on that cloud. Or are we seeing the results of that yet?
Yes, we were able to see the results, and we can move to the next question. It was a very global distribution. It's very exciting to see all
very much
from
so.
Different places. So this one is a checkbox question, and as you can see, you can choose more than one correct answer for your key challenges related to learner engagement. And you can also see the distribution here, so almost evenly distributed, but interesting to see faculty capacity and everyone being so busy to learn new things. But would be interesting if anyone wants to come up to the podium and maybe make a quick comment or insights that you have based on this one.
So to come to the podium, you just have to raise your hand. Nick.
Hi, can you hear me?
Indeed we can. It's Nick from Bradford.
Does this, are we embedded in a PowerPoint, or is this a separate sort of first piece of software for presentation?
Great question, Nick. And I think we'll cover all of those questions in due time. But to answer your specific question, these interactions and polls are embedded in completely standard slides. So in this case, Google Slides, but it could be PowerPoint, PDF, or any kind of a document, and it's fully embedded within the environment. So you don't need to use third-party polling tools.
Okay, so we're all up for learning as much as we can and perhaps finding solutions to issues that we have seen. If we can pop up the next slide, please. Okay, we've got a few questions that we've prepared in advance that we, unless you come up with some better ones, we'll ask these sort of questions today about the experience of Engagely. And we're going to direct those, again, next slide, please. We're going to direct those to Angelika Kokinaki, who is the Dean of the School of Business at the University of Nicosia, and to Talia Kolodny, who is the partners, you can see partnerships director, is it? Director of partnerships at Engagely. I'm here just to introduce and top and tail the whole thing, but from now I'm going to hand over to our case study, to Angelika, to tell us about adoption of this platform.
And Angelika, if you want to join me here on the podium so that everyone can see and hear you, we can share the podium today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Let me tell you a few things about my background. I am a professor at the University of Nicosia School of Business. My background is actually in information systems, or business information systems, and I have been serving as the dean of the school for the last 5 years, actually. So I'm going to speak today in a dual capacity. First, as a faculty, because I have adopted Engagely in my classes, and putting on the hat of the administrator, I will also occasionally provide you with some feedback in relation on the adoption of this tool in our mode of deliveries. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelika. And I'll say a brief word about my background. I've been leading the EMEA team here at Engagely for the last 2 years, and leading partnerships with companies and academic institutions in the region, mostly Europe, the UK, Middle East, and Africa, and a few other regions as well. And before that, I was very privileged to be a part of some of the world-leading edtech organizations like Coursera, Khan Academy, and Open edX. So I'm really passionate about this world that combines education and technology and really provides opportunities for individuals and communities around the world while providing access to high quality education. And at Engagely, we're developing this environment that really brings the opportunity for innovation and engagement in this new world of learning that we're in. I think we all felt, just as Keith's introduction, the very significant transition that we've been going through after the pandemic or during the pandemic, and now starting to really see the forward-thinking vision of what things might look like in the next decade or so. So I'm excited to have this conversation today and to showcase the trailblazing work that's being done in the University of Nicosia. And I just wanted to plug in our questions and answer tab. If you have a question for the panel or on the topic, or if you have something that's on your mind, feel free to post it in the Q&A by clicking on the bubble with a question mark on the bottom of your screen. You can post your questions there. You can also post anonymous questions if you like, and you can also respond to other people's questions. So feel free to do that. Yeah, Chris.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I forgot to turn my camera on. I'm the the head of the Technology Enhanced Learning Centre at the University of Nicosia, and previously I was the main innovator for bringing e-learning to the university, and I was the person that really started the university off with Engagely, and really it was an outcome of a couple of factors. I had a PhD student in Palestine, and she was looking at breakout rooms as a as part of her study. And also we had COVID, so along came Engagely, and I was already plugged into the whole concept of breakout rooms and here breakout tables, active learning, and it was just a perfect platform for that context. And so it immediately piqued my interest, and then I saw a lot of the other features that Engagely had, and the interface. You can see yourself, you can capture the screen, you can take notes on the screen. I mean, it was a fantastic interface. We at the university had other video conferencing systems, so we had Microsoft Teams, we were using WebEx meetings, but they didn't really, and Teams didn't integrate very well with Moodle, still doesn't, because of a technical issue we have with our setup, and WebEx was the way it was. And I think one of another reason why I was very happy with the product was the company support. It was fabulous, and that was another really good reason why we continue with Engagely. So always when you introduce new technologies to your organization, there's a challenge, there's expectations and that kind of thing, but it went very smoothly. I was very impressed with the blockchain digital currency program. All the lecturers started using it, and it just, they liked it. And now the business school is using it, and the lecturers seem to like it as well, and it's going very smoothly. So I think that's why we're using Engagely.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm sure, Chris, you can maybe come back and share some of your experiences as we describe the implementation at the university, and you can talk about what that was like for you. So thanks so much for your warm words.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if we can move to the next slide. If you, as I think some of you already discovered the option to respond with reaction. So if you see the little smiley face on the bottom of your screen, you can choose thumbs up, thumbs down, other types of reactions. And if you've heard or said or thought even internally one of these statements, learners are tuned out, they're asking themselves why they should be present in a live session, or it's impossible to manage small group interaction in a large classroom. It's challenging to get feedback about students' progress and learning when you're online. And sometimes I need to hack the systems that I'm using to get some kind of engagement in my day-to-day teaching or classrooms. So if you identify or heard any of these statements, feel free to give us a thumbs up. Okay, so we have definitely some of you can relate to these. And I think these are definitely some statements that a lot of us can identify with. And I'd like to allow Angelica to talk a little bit about the university and the business school and the challenges that they've been facing when they were looking at engagement.
Thank you, Talia. So the University of Nicosia is, of course, located in Cyprus, in Eastern Mediterranean. I say that because it's not always obvious where we are located. We are the largest university in Cyprus, and possibly the largest in Southern Europe that teaches primarily in English. Currently, the university has over 14,000 students, and the students come from 100 plus different countries across the globe. Actually, we don't have students from Arctica and Antarctica, but we have from almost everywhere else. And this is not trivial because Cyprus is not by all accounts, a top destination, let's say, for education, for higher education. I mean, people who want to pursue higher education studies traditionally go to certain Anglo-Saxonic destinations or some Central European countries. So to have the vote of confidence of such a large number of student body is a privilege and an obligation, and we try the best to be able to provide a very distinctive, rich educational experience to these people. We are a comprehensive university in the sense that we have over 100 different programs of studies, both on campus, face-to-face, and online. And we are, by all accounts, a very young university, very innovative, I would say, and we are climbing up the positions in rankings. By the latest account of Times Higher Education, we are placed 501 to 600 internationally. And I'm very happy to say that the School of Business has been recognized by the same body as the best university in Cyprus in the sector of business and economics in 2022. So to give you a context, experimentation with online delivery of courses started at the university around 2012. And we were viewing that mode of delivery as complementary to our face-to-face delivery or blended delivery initially. And then in 2013, as you may remember, we had a major financial crisis in Cyprus. By the same token, we had to innovate to survive. So that was the time that we first delivered the first program purely online. And that is gaining momentum, I would say. And over the years, we have a number of programs now that are delivered through online mode of delivery. We are the first European university to be recognized to have 5 stars for online education. And we are striving to provide for our students the sort of education that will make them be distinctive in their field of studies. So that's it about overall about the University of Nicosia. Let me tell you a few things about the School of Business. We are one of the 8 schools at the university. We have currently over 220 students, and currently we have representatives from over 85 countries. We account about 14% of the total student enrollment, and that places us as the second largest school in terms of student numbers. We are taking pride in ourselves by being the pioneers in e-learning, because the school has launched the MBA program delivered online in 2013. And we were the first to offer a master program in blockchain and digital currency in 2014. And we continue to lead in e-learning experience, and we offer to our students programs that are designed and delivered by us, but we also try to have partners, and we offer degrees in association with other universities in Europe. Over 60% of our student body comes to attend courses online. And this can be easily explained because the majority of our students are enrolled in postgraduate programs of study, and these are people who are more advanced in their careers. They have many obligations, they may have some family peculiarities, so for them it is a very good alternative to attend programs online. And we also believe that we are forward-looking in the sense that we try to get in a very organic, bi-directional way with the technology-enhanced learning center. And Chris and I have numerous discussions on how we can actually develop the educational culture and commitment of our faculty, our school, towards our students. So all of our programs employ digital tools and technology enhancement tools, and this is not something that we offer only to our online students. Okay, we have we incorporate in an organic way these tools for the delivery in all kind of delivery mode, be that face-to-face, online, or blended. At certain degrees of study, we believe that having this platform is not only a matter of enriching the learning experience, but also it is developing some kind of competitive advantage, and this is particularly important for degrees of study in, let's say, blockchain and digital currency, or the MBA program. So having said that, I have also to come and talk a little bit about our faculty, because it is not always certain that all of our faculty members are as enthusiastic about endorsing new technologies as Chris and I am. So we want to make sure that we adopt technologies like Engagely to improve and actually assist the faculty in their interactions and engagement with students, and make them feel that this is yet another tool that will help them advance the learning experience that they offer to the students. And it has been a common, let's say, a common feeling of unhappiness that the tools that we have been using in the past did not actually support interactivity and engagement, and they didn't support aspects of everyday learning experience as we commonly address it within a school of business. It was not very easy to have some kind of online equivalent of group work to be able to provide a flawless environment to discuss about case studies in small groups, or to enable students to get together and discuss their group projects or run their simulations, and so on and so forth. So it was widely accepted that the environment that we used to have in the past was not exactly a very nurturing solution towards this kind of interactions and engagement that we were trying to have with our students. And something that is also important in relation to a school of business is not only what happens within the class, be that face-to-face or virtual. It is also what happens outside the class, especially for students in the MBA, but also for the students that we have in master, so for blockchain and digital currency. It is the networking, it is being able to hear peers and communicate with them that adds value to a program of study. And this networking and peer-to-peer communication was absolutely crushed by the technological tools that we had before. So typically, we used to have what I described as the black screen syndrome. Now, in the literature, that means something else, but I use the term to define the feeling that the lecturer has when they are delivering a lecture, and all they see is a black screen with white names underneath, no visual contact with the person. You don't know if they're attending or perhaps they're doing something else. You don't have any kind of visual feedback if they nod or perhaps they feel that something is not very clear. And there is this eerie silence. I mean, you don't know if the things that you say to them are understood or they are accepted, or perhaps they disagree on something. So that lack of interaction between the students and the faculty, the students and the content that was explained to them. And I would argue student-to-students interaction, not only in relation to learning, but also in relation to perhaps everyday business problems. That was a major challenge that we faced.
And what we thought we would do now is to take 2-3 minutes for everyone to reflect on those challenges that Angelica presented just now, and to discuss with your table mates what are some challenges that you've been facing in creating human connections and engagement in your own programs, in your own business schools. And we'll set a timer for 3 minutes just to have a very brief and quick interaction with each other. And we're already in table mode, so you don't need to go out and come back. You're already within your group. We'll direct you to your table mates gallery so that you can see who's with you on the same table. And please feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your cameras and be present and interact with each other and share some of your best practices and ideas with each other around this question. And we'll resume and come back 3 minutes from now. So have fun and enjoy. It was so nice to see everyone interacting and to have this opportunity to meet some new people. So I hope you all enjoyed that interaction. You also see how instant and easy it is to transition from group activities or discussions back to our full group conversation. So that's part of the idea, to create a dynamic environment where, similarly to the face-to-face, you can have natural and quick interactions with your table mates and your peers, and also never lose the context of the full classroom. So Angelica, maybe you can talk a little bit about your vision for the business school and how Engagely, what in your eyes was supporting that vision.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So Engagely was initially introduced as a pilot in our master in blockchain and digital currency, and this is a degree that we offer and attracts people who are technology savvy and very innovative crowd there. So we thought that it would be very easy for them to adapt and adopt a new learning environment. But what came as a very nice surprise is that this is not only for this group of people, but practically for everyone. And the easiness of incorporating this kind of learning environment within any program of study actually led us to see and examine that in fact this opens up totally new opportunities for us, for the school and the university at large. And what we have experienced, and we show that scaling up very nicely, is the fact that students interact and get engaged with the course in a very straightforward manner. They exchange information on the topics that are discussed, but also beyond, and they build meaningful relations between themselves and, of course, with the faculty. In the words of one of our students, it is so much a pity that we introduced this tool by the time that they were about to graduate. And that shows something about the degree of their satisfaction out of this environment. And for us, this is important, and of course it is important, speaking from the point of view of a dean now rather than a faculty, not only to enhance learning experiences, but also to create this kind of environment through which, by word of mouth, this satisfaction is broadcasted and could lead potentially to an increase in enrollment in our programs.
It's interesting, Angelica, because a comment that I hear a lot from professors and deans that I speak to every day all over the world is that I wish I had something like this when I was a student, because it would have made the experience so much more meaningful and enhanced. So this is basically where Engagely comes in, and the co-founding team of Engagely really brought a lot of experience and insight into the design of this environment that was purpose-built for education and learning. And so as opposed to some of the video conferencing platforms that we were all used to using when we were forced to move everything online, this was built for the purpose of learning and teaching. And perhaps if you explore and you play around with some of the features that are available to you in this session, like our interactive notebooks or the Q&A, or the way that the chat is designed and the way that you're focused on what you need to do while you're looking at your screen, this is all intentionally focusing on the things that we know are effective for learning and teaching. And perhaps, I don't know how much you know about the company, but these are the co-founders of Engagely, Daphne Koller, who is the co-founder of Coursera, Dan Avida, who is the CEO and was also on the board of Coursera from the very first day and has several successful companies, and his background both as a CEO and as a venture capitalist. And Professor Plotkin, who is a professor of computer science from Stanford, who is building the technology. And all of these brilliant entrepreneurs are bringing also their personal experience as educators and people who are teaching online, and also the feedback from hundreds and thousands of educators from the top universities in the world, from leading companies in the industry, and really bringing that feedback into the environment that you're seeing here today. A lot of what you're seeing and experiencing here is based on academic research and on the insight from what we've seen based on 100 million learners that are on the Coursera platform today. So what we know about active learning and the correlation between active learning and engagement with enhanced learning outcomes is based on a very robust body of research. You can see a meta-analysis here from PNAS. And what's interesting is that sometimes there's a gap between what students think is best for their own learning and what is actually good for their learning. So it would be interesting to see what you think. Maybe I gave you a spoiler for this question, but if Andrea, if you can activate this question, if you ask your own students what they prefer, if they prefer a lecture or they prefer an active learning experience, what do you think they'll say? Let's see what the sentiment in the room is. So I see a lot of you think that students prefer active learning, which is interesting, but unfortunately untrue, because as we can see from the next slide, and I think, yeah, okay, so the next slide, it shows some research that shows this gap between the perception of students, which is basically that lectures and passive learning experiences are better. They prefer them. They think that this is the way that they should be learning. But when you actually check their results, their outcomes, the assessment results, you'll see that the active learning experience is significantly better and with better outcomes, enhanced outcomes. So sometimes, when you ask students, oh, which platform do you prefer, or what's the better tool, or which one do you want to use for their learning, it's not, their response isn't always based on what's actually beneficial for them in the long term in terms of their learning experience. So sometimes we need to balance the need to provide, a very joyful, enjoyable, dynamic environment for people to interact with each other, and also to think about what's actually beneficial for their own learning journeys. One quote that I really like from Daphne Koller is that, lecture hall distance learning starts from the third row. And this is related to a lot of the statements that, oh, we want to go back to face-to-face because this is where we can really connect with our students, right? A lot of professors, educators say, I can only get real feedback and I can get students to be engaged in the face-to-face classroom. But when you think about it, in these large lecture halls that are all set up in straight rows that are all facing the podium, where the expert is passing along their own knowledge to the next generation, this is not a very interactive environment, and it's not very supportive of peer-to-peer learning and collaboration. And sometimes the only students who are engaged are maybe the 5 or 6 people who are most vocal and feel confident enough to raise their hand and ask a question. But all the rest are, maybe they're with you, maybe they're not, you don't really know what's going on with them. So here we have a true opportunity to leverage the benefits of technology to create a very equitable environment where anyone can have a voice, everyone can express themselves and interact and engage. If it's with a poll, with a reaction, with questions, with the chat, you have multiple channels of communication and participation that are available to you. And the table setup is something that really fosters and promotes the peer-to-peer learning and community. So here in this digital classroom, like one of our dedicated partners says from UC3M, is that there's no back row in a digital classroom. And this is really the mindset that we have here. So I'd like to share some of the information with you on how Engagely was implemented at the University of Nicosia. And you can see in the first year of implementation, and here I can just name Shiran Maor, my colleague who's sitting also next to me here, who was leading the implementation alongside a few other team members here at Engagely, and working very closely with the faculty members and with Angelica and with Chris to really make sure that we have an implementation model that fits their needs and addresses their key challenges. And over time, we see increased adoption and more instructors who are excited about the opportunity to interact in this way with their students. And just to show one example of how some of these embedded interactions, like the ones you experienced earlier with the polls, can really enhance participation. Just like Angelica mentioned before, when you have this eerie feeling that it's so quiet and you don't know if people are with you or not. Here, you don't even need the students to speak up or to engage in verbal communication. You can just ask them a question. And we see that with these polls, you get between 90 and 100% participation, even if their cameras are off, even if they're in a location that doesn't have such a good internet connection. And this really allows them to be active in their learning, to be engaged, to be on their toes, and to continuously interact with their peers and their instructors. So this is a quote from one of the instructors in the blockchain program, where he really enjoyed and leveraged the polls to generate this kind of interaction with the students, and he found it to be really helpful for him in his class. And the next example we wanted to show is from the business school. And this is some of the insight that you can gain from looking at Engagely analytics. And so here you can see a graph of attendance that's divided into dates. You can see overall attendance. And the interesting thing here is that you can also see attendance in the asynchronous environment. So students can come into the same classroom with the same link, and it's all browser-based. You don't have to download anything. And they can interact and watch recordings of lectures and even bring peers with them to work on a case study together, or to answer a few questions, or to collaborate on a whiteboard or a shared document. And all of that data about how they're interacting in the classroom, even if the instructor isn't there, will be visible and available to you, so that you can see exactly the progress and how people interact and engage over time. So this is something that's fairly unique with Engagely. And another example we wanted to show, and this is from Professor Kolkinovsky's class, you can see very clearly how on the top graph, what you see is the instructor speaking time throughout one session. So you have timestamps in the session, and you can see a very clear gap there where the professor wasn't speaking. So what happened in that gap is what you see on the bottom chart, and this is the parallel student speaking time. So in that exact timestamp where Angelica activated a table activity, you can immediately see the engagement levels in terms of speaking time going up and students starting to interact with each other. So it stands out, and it's very clear to see the type of insight you can have on even very minor interventions or adjustments to your lesson flow or to your learning design choices. And you can immediately see that in the data. And if we have time, we might even show you analytics from speaking time of this session in a few minutes while you were discussing at the tables. Angelica, did you want to add anything about?
Yes, I would like actually to make a point on the previous slide. You know, in my classes, I issue some case studies, and I also have a simulation project. And for the simulation project, it is a group project. Students need some kind of interaction that will enable them to meet whenever it is convenient for the group, be able to share different kind of content, be able to take decisions easily, perhaps running a poll among themselves, have some partial solutions described on the whiteboard. And they were so happy that they could use Engagely on their own. So Engagely is not only for the time that we have allocated to do the lectures, but it is actually a tool that they can use for meaningful interactions related to, in this case, the course, at their own convenience. So this is something that is greatly appreciated. And yes, of course, when it comes also to the fact that within an Engagely session, we have time that is devoted to explain some concept, a time that is devoted to burst interactions on a table mode. This is actually giving to the students a satisfaction that they can actually make an impact on the class. They are not simply there to be able to listen or absorb. They can actually contribute. And this is
and I hope you can see what I just shared in my screen. Can you see a graph with the distribution of engagement? Yeah, great. So this is the actual real-time data that we have from this session. So you can see exactly when we went to the table discussion, that's when the engagement levels go up, and you can see the speaking time and how it distributes throughout the session. So it's such a helpful tool when you're the facilitator or the teacher or the instructor, when you can see these things with your own eyes. You can either see it in real time or analyze it after the session and make better decisions for how you'd like to support your students or design your next classes. Yeah, Chris, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure some people are thinking about point of differentiation now between Engagely and, you know, maybe Zoom and Teams and Google Meet. But I think that the thing is, that always struck me was that Engagely team were thinking about education and then designing their platform to meet their educational ideas, the theories that they had. Threas if you look at the other platforms out there, it seems to me that they just developed them for communication, and they haven't really thought about education. So they've done it reverse, or rather Engagely have done it reverse, the correct way, reverse Polish, if you want to call it that. It's not just the platform's technically advanced, they're also advanced at the theoretical level of education. And I don't know companies actually think about those two sides of the coin, so to speak, at the same time. You can see that they're thinking very heavily at the educational side, and they design their platform for that purpose.
Thanks so much, Chris. And I know we're almost towards the end of our time. Time flies when you're having fun, and I think we all want to enable some discussion and questions. So maybe, Angelica, if you can briefly touch on how you see the impact.
I think a couple of points have been already addressed by Chris, and I refer to the first and second. I would like to say that Engagely has been fantastically supportive with us, and I'm sure with their other associations as well, in the way that we were able to introduce this tool and adopt it in a way that is convenient to our faculty. So faculty satisfaction is also central to the success of an introduction of a new platform. And for me personally, I think that a great impact and value for the unique School of Business comes from the fact that now all the type of interactions that we used to have in a face-to-face environment are supported. In some ways, it is even better through the Engagely, and by that I mean that through Engagely I have access to data about how much students talk and offer to their views to other students, and how they interact among themselves, something that I didn't have in a conventional environment. So not only I know who is perhaps a shy person and needs encouragement to express their idea, but also who is very outspoken and could be potentially great to move from one table to another to sort of like balance the situations and bring everybody on board with the topic that is discussed. And what I would also like to underline is the value that this kind of environment offers to business school students. And I would like to present the case of two of my students from last semester, fall 2022, where they had a group activity and they were interacting in table mode. They were feeling very secure to express whatever they wanted to say. So one person said that she was the HR manager in this and that company, and they were actually looking for somebody, and that was like part of the conversation. It was not meant to advertise the opening, but there was a person in that same table who was interested. So he applied and eventually got the position, and I received a very touching thank you letter from him. Yes, and that is the time that you feel validated as an educator. Now, holding this back and seeing it from the perspective of an administrator, I believe strongly that this type of interactions add value to business school overall, and is a great differentiating factor between this kind of interaction and others in other platforms. So I hope I was able to
Thank you.
enlighten some of this.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good time to invite a few questions from the audience. You can either use the chat or come up to the podium or use the Q&A, and we're happy to address your thoughts and questions, or if you want to share your own experiences. Maybe while we're doing that, we can also share this final question. Andrea, if you want to activate this one. This is a word cloud question, so you can put in a word and click on the little check mark, and we'll get a nice word cloud.
And as you're doing that, I must say I was very impressed how all of my questions that we've discussed before were answered in the case study and in your presentation. So we do thank you very, very much, Angelika and Talia, for those insights. Very short space of time to get into what is a very, very good, and a platform which has a lot more features than we're able to highlight today.
And Keith, maybe I can address just one question I see in the Q&A, if that's okay. Around security and accessibility. So this is definitely something that's a top priority for us as a company. We work with external assessors that every few months provide a very extensive assessment of our accessibility standards, so that we are making sure to meet all of the international standards in terms of accessibility, both for screen readers and people who are visually impaired or other types of disabilities. And in terms of security, what I found, especially in geographical areas that have already removed access to some of the mainstream platforms because of privacy and security issues, we have extremely high standards for privacy and security. You can find our policies on our website, and we're fully GDPR compliant and really meet the highest standards that that are out there in both international and specific US and specific European standards. So this is something that's built into the platform. It's very secure. We work with each institution to provide their own instance and their own security measures and authentication. Usually we integrate with your existing learning management systems in a way that's easy for the students and instructors to access, but also remaining very secure. So I hope that answers, and if you'd like more detailed information, we're happy to share some links. Any other questions from the audience?
So there was an excellent observation from Dennis in the chat during the session, and that was, you know, this offers so many things. It's the context of the students that needs to be taken into consideration as actually which bits of this you deploy, which tools you use. But if anyone wants to, oh, sorry, we're going to that picture of Barcelona next. I just want to, before we end today, is to say if this has inspired anyone to want to find out more, if this has helped you understand that things can go beyond the sort of the technologies that we have been using, please join us for our 7th annual EOCCS Symposium, which will be done in a hybrid fashion using this Engagely platform. We're very pleased to be supported by Engagely in this. The face-to-face will be hosted in Barcelona at UPF Barcelona School of Management, and there's the dates. If you're interested, those dates will be on our website with a registration page as soon as we can put it up there. But we're looking there at the value of online engagement, and what we want to explore further is not only the value for faculty and educators and administrators and support staff and learning designers, but also the engagement of our learners. But if we can thank everyone, if there are any more questions, we'll be very pleased to take them. But thank you very much, Talia. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you, Chris, and the whole team at Engagely for setting this up. We had a phrase being a co-pilot for a lot of online sessions, and I do thank the co-pilots who are behind the scenes making this work for us. So thank you very much once again, and thank you everybody.
And thank you, Keith, for hosting the session, and Camila for your work behind the scenes, and Katie and the whole team. So, and also to everyone who participated today, I know it's not always easy to find an hour of your time to learn something new and to engage with colleagues, but I think these are the perfect opportunities to get inspired and to hear about best practices and make new friends and relationships to build together. So I invite anyone who wants to learn more to contact us, and we would be more than happy to stay in touch with everyone.
Thank you, Talia. Thank you.